Notre Dame's defensive line room got a big boost on Tuesday night when Blue and Gold's Eric Hansen broke the news, actually, while he was on his Football Never Sleeps live show at Blue and Gold, that Jason Onye was granted a 6th year of eligibility. We're going to talk about this news in this video with Jack Sobel. Folks, please do hit the thumbs up on this. Subscribe to the channel for more content. Go to blueandgold.com for more coverage on this news and so much more. Jack, when you see the news that Onye got this 6th year, which you guys have been reporting for, I think, over a month that Notre Dame was working towards this, but what was your reaction? How big of a news is this for the Irish?
I mean, it's huge, and it completes Notre Dame's turnaround at defensive tackle this offseason from glaring weakness, by far the biggest need on the roster, to, in my opinion, bona fide strength. Because we can talk about the implications for Onye personally later in the video, but for Notre Dame, Onye was playing as well as any defensive tackle in college football in the back half of 2025, from weeks 8 to 14, so starting with the USC game and going all the way through Stanford. Onye's PFF defense grade, 86.6, as you see him get under the offensive tackle for a sack, get under his shoulder pads right there. 86.6 PFF defense grade was number 1 in the country among Power 4 defensive tackles in the back half of the season. Quarterback pressures, he had 15, which was tied for 3rd. USC, Boston College, Pitt, all these games. The Boston College game, Onye was legitimately dominant. You see that 2-hand swipe that creates an easy play for Drake Bowen. The USC game, I think, was the best game of his career to date by far, just punishing guys up the middle. He was a fantastic player for Notre Dame. He always had the talent, but he really figured it out in the second half of the 2025 season. As here you see the USC game, perfect stack and shed here for the run stop. You're going to see a quarterback pressure coming up here as well. Just huge for Notre Dame, and Onye, I think, is the plug-and-play starter at 3 technique defensive tackle.
Jack, I want to talk about like how this impacts the defensive line room as a whole, but first, like, can you talk about like maybe how this came together, especially in light of other guys not getting 6 years of eligibility?
Yeah, details aren't super public on the grounds by which Notre Dame was applying for a waiver for Onye, but I think it can be reasonably assumed that he kind of got an exception based on missing most of the 2024 season with the mental health issue that caused him to step away from the team. At the time, I don't think we were super sure whether he would come back at all.
Right.
But then he came back in spring practice, stayed with the team. Really made an impression on his coaching staff. Of course, he's very close with Al Washington, who, even though he's not his position coach anymore, remains with the team. Really made an impression on Chris Ash as well. Started week 1, kind of got blown off the ball a lot by Miami in that game. Struggled. And he admitted himself that it was not his best game. It was not the performance he wanted, but he just stuck with it, even as a backup for a couple weeks, back into the starting lineup. And then, of course, had the phenomenal second half of the season. But Onye played 5 games before he left the team in 2024. Typically, you only get 4 to secure a redshirt in those circumstances, but it seems the NCAA has made an exception in this matter.
Gotcha. So let's talk about the defensive line room. But before we go to the interior where Onye will play, let's talk about the DNs. Like, what are your expectations for those guys like Bryce Young, Keon Keeley, of course, Boubacar Traore being the big names that you would anticipate getting the most reps at defensive end. But, what about some other guys like, Logan Thomas? Could we see Rodney Dunham and Ebenezer Uwatade?
Yeah, it's an opportunity for all those guys. You look at the returners in Logan Thomas, I think is the first option there, assuming he puts on the requisite weight. I think he played last year at about 220 pounds, according to the official roster. He's probably got to get up to around 240, one would think, to be a real factor in that room. Dominic Hulak, Joe Reif, the redshirt freshman, and then Rodney Dunham, Ebenezer Uwatade, I believe 5-star incoming freshman coming in. That 4th spot is open. You have Boubacar Traore, locked-in starter, one of the more important players on the roster coming into this season. On the other side, you would think it'll be a really good competition between Bryce Young and Keon Keeley, who, of course, transferred from Alabama. A lot of upside there, but a lot of development to do as well. And then the 4th spot, I've been saying all offseason, you need 4 defensive ends you can trust to produce a quality defensive front. So Logan Thomas would think it's the first shot there, but it's not an open and shut case by any stretch.
Right. So, yeah, it seems like, Traore's going to get the most snaps. And then, I think Keon Keeley and Bryce Young will kind of have about an even share. And then, we'll see who emerges. I just would not sleep on the young guys, Rodney Dunham and Ebenezer Uitade. Don't be surprised if one of those guys makes a jump. But yeah, like the cases with Logan Thomas, need to put on some weight. I tweeted this out last night. 2 weeks ago, Notre Dame's interior D-line was concerning. Now it's looking extremely promising. So, like, Jack, 2 weeks ago, the starting interior defensive line looked like Elijah Hughes and like Colt Mullins. Now you add in Francis Brew from Pitt, Tion Gray, 6'6", 330 pounds from Oregon. You get Jason Onye back, which this, from what I was told, went back and forth on whether NCAA was going to give him that sixth year based on just kind of what the scuttlebutt was behind the scenes on the communication between the two parties. You get Armel Mukam back, who is looking at Georgia Tech and Virginia, and I believe a few others out of the portal.
Northwestern you visited as well.
And then you still have the potential of like a Chris Burgess or Cole Mullins, who I mentioned, maybe one of the young guys like a Davian Dixon or Sean Sevillano, could emerge this year. Like you said, this is a bona fide strength of the team. So yeah, thoughts on this going from such a weakness to a strength, and then what do you think the starting interior defensive line looks like? And when I say starting, more of like who just gets the most snaps?
Well, the thing with the uncertainty with the Onye situation is Notre Dame had to approach the transfer portal process like he wasn't coming back. They had to put themselves in a spot where if the ruling went the other way, they wouldn't have a weakness at this position. Now that the ruling went their way, it's a strength because they did exactly that. They brought in a bona fide starter in Francis Brew, a depth piece with upside in Tion Gray, who now with Onye there's a lot less pressure on Tion Gray to really be that guy in year one. He can kind of just fill his niche as a two-gap run stuffer, play like 20 snaps a game, really develop behind the scenes as well. I think this puts him in a much better spot for long-term development. As far as the starters, I would think it's going to be Francis Brew and Jason Onye. I think our Eric Hansen put it as Brew at nose tackle, which he's a smaller nose tackle, but I kind of like because he's gonna be stronger than most centers he faces, and he's proven strong enough to take on double teams. Onye, that 3 technique position where he thrived towards the second half of 2025. And then Tion Gray, Elijah Hughes, who quietly had a really good season for Notre Dame last year, by the way, in about 250, 300 snaps. I think he and Gray played around the same last year. So Hughes is in there. Cole Mullins is the guy they like, especially on third downs. Armel Mukam, obviously someone they wanted back after he entered the transfer portal. And like you said, Chris Burgess, who I think his dad tweeted is up to like 6'5", 298 as recently as December. So he could be a factor there. Sean Sevillano, like you said, Dave Endick. I mean, there's a ton of names here who could conceivably contribute for Notre Dame this year. But I really like that top 4 of Brew, Onye, Gray, and Hughes. That's a really strong and deep group.
No brain rot intended, but you could go 6 or 7 deep.
Absolutely.
With Onye, I mean, even 8, you could. They're not going to, but Onye, Hughes, obviously. Mullins and Burgess, I mean, especially Burgess, I've heard really good things about him behind the scenes. And then, Brew and Gray are locks. And then, as other nose tackle, like you said, Armel Mukam, Davian Dixon, I hear really good things about. So there's a lot of reason to be excited. And this is as excited I think Notre Dame should be about the interior defensive line for at least, I don't know, I don't want to put a number on it, but it feels like
since Cross and Mills. I like this group. I like this group better than I did last year. I think knowing what you have in Onye in ways that you did not last year is big. Knowing what you have in the transfer, I see Francis Brew as an upgrade over Jared Dawson, who obviously did something good things for them last year.
Yeah, obviously Cross Mills. This might be a little bit of a deeper room than that, though. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like when Cross and Mills were here, you had Onye and Gabriel Rubio as backups, but Onye was inconsistent. Rubio was hurt a lot. If this group can stay healthy, like it's very exciting times in there. And you have to credit, by the way, Al Washington for building this group, for building kind of the depth and the relationship with Jason Onye that I think is a big reason he's still here. And Charlie Partridge, the new defensive line coach, who, if Charlie Partridge was not here, Francis Brew would not be either.
Yeah.
And who moved quickly when Tion Gray entered the transfer portal to secure him as well. So big credit to those two.
Yep, folks, I know you like this news, so please hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more content. Go to blueandgold.com for so much more on this news. Thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you next time.